Alright, hey up everyone, welcome to Between the Lines, a little show where I read some poems for you and talk a bit about how I came to write them. So I started writing poetry last year during lockdown, which time I mainly thought of myself as a playwright, if anything, amongst my other creative outputs, which include performance and entertainment stuff. As a writer, I'm naturally very interested in language, and as part of my writing process, I like to gather words and phrases that I read or hear into a glossary. And it may be because they're poetic or profound, it might be because they're funny or witty, or it might be because they're totally ordinary, even mundane, but that I see their potential in a different context. So I like to play at transposing something from the everyday into art. That art may, as they say, imitate life. Sometimes it's as simple as taking something I heard someone say at the checkout in Asda and putting it into a scene in a play or a monologue. But other times that phrase might serve as a springboard of inspiration in discovering an untold story or a more developed meaning. So this first piece is an example of that. So just before lockdown, I did some workshops about voice with Age UK at Bakewell Day Centre. And on the first day, I met Brenda. And she had a disposition where she would laugh almost constantly, unless, of course, she was speaking or having a drink or something. And it was the most jolly laugh, and the fact of its unrelenting gusto made it really rather infectious. Anyway, a few days later, I met Peter, who was 100 years old and had worked as a chauffeur for high-ranking officers during the war. And he was chatting away, and I could tell he was trying to think of someone's name, but he couldn't. So he just said, you know, the lady with the laugh. So, of course, I knew who he meant, but I thought, what a wonderful way of putting it. And I knew there was a story in that line as soon as he'd said it. Not Brenda's story, but something latent which I was yet to discover. So, upon writing this piece, I submitted it to the BBC Upload programme, and last summer it got played on BBC Radio Nottingham as part of a poetry double bill. So here it is. This is called The Lady with the Laugh. The lady with the laugh, heard but never seen, always there yet rarely revealed. She remains concealed, but for those who draw close, close enough to whisper, but distant enough yet to miss her. The sound of her cackle rattles through the air, through your mind and through your soul, until you find that the line between ecstasy and despair is utterly threadbare. Why does she laugh? You can't help but ask. What's so funny? Is she insane? She must be out of her mind with a laugh so inane. But you do well to go out of your mind at least once a day. Maybe she knows something we don't. Imagine that. The lady with the laugh maybe isn't just crazy, rather just treading a different path, a different wave. She's laughing all the way to the grave. And while you scorn and sneer, your soul craves for her insight, starved of anything, lest it may cause you delight. You want in on the joke, so as to comprehend the scope of her secret, and yet your lips, should they lack purpose, will cry, "Can't you be serious for just a second?" But you'll rue the day you beckoned such demands, when everything you thought had meaning merely crumbles into sand. Maybe the lady knows that life's slings and arrows are suffered only by those who chose the road most travelled. And when your mind is closed, your heart is blind to the idea that Our mortal state might raise a chortle to one who sees that the joke of time has only one punchline. Have you heard the lady with the laugh? Keep your ear to the ground. She's there to be found. She titters still from beneath her epitaph. All right, so this next one I wrote was in response to a call out from an artist called Golda Canby, who for her residency project has compiled and had published a collection of poetry and experimental writing called Unbound. So the theme was bondage, and I was actually having thoughts around these themes at the time. I was particularly occupied with this image of being in a cage, but with the door having been left open. So being free to escape, but not having the courage to leave the familiarity and safety of the padded cell. So the title of this next one is inspired by a line I wrote in a monologue that formed a series as part of a lockdown project called Message in a Bottle, which was created by Alice Connolly. The theme was identity, and the piece was called Get Your Act Together, and it explored the analogy of life as a drama through the dilemmas of a player waiting in the wings. So this next one is called The Wings of My Life. I'm waiting in the wings of my life. A feather-soft cell is where I dwell, guarded by fear of liberty, of running free towards the light. The cage is open, but the beast is in sublime slumber. Life spent under the spell of a daydream, a beam of consciousness streamed live on the screen of my mind, it seems. Trapped in my head, hounded by thoughts, but the beast in me, so fraught, doesn't see that I've covered all grounds, but I've ground to a halt. A search, stunted by seeking something that was there all along, screaming. A silent voice, giving me the choice, echoing from a well within, vibrating my wings. What is it that's all in the mind? A cavernous mine of forever treasures, weighty chains that suffocate, clipped wings and apron strings. If I were a wisp that blows on the whim of the wind, at the mercy of catapulting change, I might be left feeling lost, unfounded, found wanting for that which before had bound me. Where I'm bound for, I can't be sure. My destination is as yet obscured, held hostage by this resounding hesitation of mine. I wonder if I'll ever spread the wings of my life. So, apart from my career as a freelance artist, I also have a lot of experience working in care within special educational needs, domiciliary or home care, mental health and complex needs, and palliative or end-of-life care. So this next piece is inspired by that. Now, I wrote it a couple of months ago and first performed it at the Saturday Share event as part of the Writing East Midlands conference. And it then got selected to feature on the BBC Upbeat Festival, which was aired on BBC iPlayer and across BBC radio stations nationally. And it is also since been featured again on BBC Radio Derby, along with an interview about the inspiration for the piece and my current projects. So before I start on this one, I just thought I'd mention that a care home manager once said to me that my heart wasn't in the job, which for someone who never spent any time at all with her residents was interesting. So anyway, this one is dedicated to anyone who's ever given their heart and soul to something and has either had it ignored or has been persecuted for that. So this one is called Commode to a Care Worker. Vacancy. Unskilled worker required. Apply within. Anyone hired. No experience necessary. Immediate start. Minimum wage. Bring your heart. All training provided, but even an NVQ can never truly prepare you. Not just for being underpaid, overworked and undervalued, but for the challenge of simply making it through. Long days spent short-staffed. It might not be bricklaying, but hoist manoeuvres and manual handling is equally hard graft, especially when they try and fight back. A clap for carers says that I, a professional wiper of other people's bottoms, can hold my head up high and hope this legacy won't soon be forgotten. For there are only two types of folk, those who will and those who won't, and those who will soon see that on a 14-hour shift, dealing with shit falls off the end of one's to-worry list. The truth of the matter is that eventually you find that cleansing another's behind is a good time to remind yourself that, whilst a noble task, it's really not all that much to ask. In people's homes, within the community, or on different units, I see a vast complexity of human needs to be met, and my own I must temporarily forget. Whilst most are grateful, others have grown hateful, their existence embittered by their plight. Yet I must find patience, even last thing at night. Compassion in the face of a swinging fist or vitriolic ramblings spat in my direction. To feel, to listen, to forgive, and meet them still with affection. Our society is most vulnerable, whilst in many ways incapable, remain in every way human, only ever seeking connection. A hand held tenderly, worries consoled over cups of tea and stories of old, a plate full of biscuits to snack on as we put their old favourite tracks on. We sing, we dance, we laugh, we sway, the blessing or curse of another day. As the older ones will often say, I'm ready for the Lord to take me away. I cannot leave my work at the door. The souls I aid linger long after the shift ends. They touch me deep in my core, and I'll never be the same again. Each day, a little triumph through trauma. Bodies bathed and fed, comforted, content. It is the smallest of acts that form a bond, if only at least in the moment. But the one concern I could never cure, the desire they have to return home at last, and despite how minds may be obscured each and every day they ask, yet my work is their home, and as far as possible I'll make it feel so. If home is where the heart is, then I offer mine wholly to this. What it is to really care, to realise that you may one day be there. So just a final thought on this one, little something to consider. Imagine a society where there is as much honour and respect endowed upon the people who care for our country's needy as there is on those who serve in our military forces. I'd like to see a day where care work isn't considered a dead-end job, but is valued as a professional avenue, something that's featured at careers events and has the potential for work experience placements. So, on to the next. The next couple I've got for you, I actually just wrote last week, and I've been wanting recently to have a go at being a bit more playful, a bit more light-hearted with my poetry, because I can get a bit bogged down in trying to generate a meaningful message. So the first one I wrote whilst I was driving in the car. I mean, I wrote it in my head, mostly. I was thinking about speed limits and about how people drive, how I drive. Someone asked me recently, do you like driving? And I says, yeah, but not in traffic. You know, I think we can all get on each other's nerves too easily on the roads, and I wonder if we'll ever be as good at finding the brakes as we are at finding the horn. So this one is called It's a Limit, Not a Target. People rarely drive at 5 or 10, but when they do, you think, come on then. 20 is plenty, especially when the schools are emptied. 30 is worthy on a lamplit street. Any more and folks can get a bit shirty. 40 is sporty, unless it's a 30, and then it's just naughty. 50 is pretty nifty if you want to get there swiftly. 60 can be risky, but it's better than 70. And 70, whilst not a felony, is no guarantee that you'll arrive safely. 80 gets a weighty penalty. 90, likewise a fine fee. 100 might get you a ban, or it might just get you dead. Now, unrestricted to me stands contradicted. If you don't know what I'm on about, I mean the national speed limit. You know, white circle with a black line through it. The one you see on sprawling motorways and narrow country lanes. Trouble is, one's built for speed, but on the other, speed's a bit of a pain. So, come on, use your brain. It doesn't take loads to work out that winding roads aren't the best place for a Brands Hatch-style race. Why are you all in such a rush anyway? Tailgating and overtaking, hurtling towards the next red light or a flat line. And it might not be your heart that stops. You see, getting pulled by the cops is one thing, but death by dangerous driving is another. It could be someone's mother, someone's dad, sister or brother. You don't want that on your shoulders. And I know you want to make another year older, so next time you're charging around, getting vexed, just remember this. It's better to be 5 minutes late in this life than 5 minutes early into the next. So, yeah, that last line there is actually something my driving instructor said to me many years ago now, and it really stuck with me. So, spread the word on that one. All right, so yeah, this next one is my sort of second attempt at getting out of serious mode. So when the poem I read before, the last one, Commode to a Care Worker, was on the Upbeat Festival, one of the presenters said after, you know what they say, write about what you know. And someone who had watched it said to me afterwards, what did she mean, stick to what you know? So they'd obviously misunderstood, but it got me thinking, what if what I knew was absolutely nothing? So this is a poem about that idea, featuring a favourite Derbyshireism of mine, the word note, meaning nothing for the unacquainted. So this one's called Write About What You Know. They say, write about what you know. But me, you see, I know note. In fact, there's note that I don't know note about. There's loads I could spout, but it's best to work it out yourself. There's plenty of books about note on the shelf, written by academics, professors or scholars who know all there is to know about note. These experts and know-it-alls know everything about note at all. A quick search online and you're guaranteed to find endless sites and countless words about all the note there is to know in the world. Take your notepad and pen, 'cause there's plenty about note that's easy to forget. On the TV even, there it's rife. Enough shows about note for the rest of your life. The news, of course, can keep us informed of note in particular going off in your area. So be sure to tune in, 'cause you don't want to miss out on the note just in. Now, a note on note, before I go, a word to the unwise. take it from me, I've seen it plenty of times, there's only so much note your brain can soak up before it bursts at the seams like note you've ever seen. A space once vacant, now populated with note but note much worth knowing. Anyway, what I do know for sure is there's absolutely note that's for certain. Socrates knew a thing or two, and he asserted, I know one thing, and that's that I know note. And there was note that he didn't know that wasn't worth knowing. See, I'm not all that daft, even Socrates says so, and he knew note about all sorts. Not that he'd admit it, of course. So, this last one then was actually co-written between me and my twin sister, who is a lecturer in the sciences. So what happened was I was working on it for a prize submission, and on the day of the deadline I had to turn my attention to something more pressing. So she suggested that she finish it for me. So I thought, well, I trust her with anything, but do I trust her with my art? And I thought, well, you just got to have faith. It could turn out to be very interesting. And I think it did. So it was in response to the theme of Untamed. So talking about nature and civilization and the idea of wilderness and our place within it. And it was all in the realms of things I'd been mulling over at the time in relation to evolution and what actually can be considered natural in our ever more artificial world. So this last one then I'm going to leave you with is called The Untamable. The untamable, the unnameable force that binds us all, not bound and tied, but connected in time and space. An illusion of multiplicity, undeniable, unquantifiable, the original God. I don't mean God like a man in the sky, but the force of it all that makes us alive, that beats our hearts, that breathes our lungs, that looks from our eyes and speaks our tongues, that twinkles the stars, that spins the earth, that flows the rivers and sings the birds, that blows the wind, that grows the trees, that shines the sun and waves the seas, that falls the rain and dances the flame, and the moon that waxes and wanes, the celestial symphony. The interval between tones implies melody. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmony. Consciously coming home. Constructing a rhapsody to make some sense of it all, rhythmic beating in our chests. Everyone possessed by the same contest, yet no one a loser, no one the best. Creator equal, time the only test. To serve in honour is to strive for higher, to reach contentment with the ultimate commandment. To remember that we are it, not separate from it, that it all goes together, that we are it going, that it does of itself, that we are it doing, synchronised, yet equally hypnotised by a different prize of lesser value but easier on the eyes, superficial, myopic, white lies, categorised, continually atomised to create a more digestible world, one in which we take all credit but hold no account. Paralysis by analysis, hooked on the idea of freedom, yet failing to see that we were born free. Instead, we're choked by boundaries, lines on a map, yours, mine, stay inside, and in time we might see eye to eye. Blindly, we continue to divide and conquer, building borders to establish order. Yet a balance we must find, bearing the burden of a mind that seeks to solidify its state therein. Perpetual impermanence determines our fate. We come and go as the leaves on the tree, yet this in ourselves we fear, that we, an energetic pulsation of what is at play, should so be mired, yet do not hesitate to destroy our surroundings wilfully, not realizing the intricacy of our universal cosmic tapestry. Numb have we become to the pain through ignorance of the fact that we're one and the same. Our tortured earth brings fortune first, a finite source of raw materials that quench our thirst for things. Serial pillaging, a continual spillage of resources from which there is no recourse to redress. A mess here lies, and in trying to claim that prize, we are thieves of the earth. And when no mirth remains in mining for gains, where then shall we go? To the stars and beyond? We shall civilize the universe, breaking further our bond to earth when we find that our curse travels with us and intensifies in the skies of our dreaming. Return may we then, cap in hand, naked and alone, shameful and ready to atone for the damage and destruction of our only home, to find it is rather too little, too late. The deed already done, we are sealed in our fate, overlaid for the most important lesson to date. Well, thank you very much for joining me. If you've made it to the end, I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. I'll see you again.